Good evening. Welcome to round two of the flipped AP US History classroom. In class today, we hopefully got through Shay's Rebellion, all right, which, as you know, is a rebellion in western Massachusetts, led by a guy named Daniel Shays, but it was more a group of farmers that protested the high taxes, the inflation, and the foreclosures on their property in Massachusetts, and kind of exposed how weak the government was under the Articles of Confederation. So it was instrumental in bringing about some of the changes brought out in the Constitution. Didn't cause it necessarily because they were already going to meet in Philadelphia and have a constitutional convention, but Shays' Rebellion did expose how weak the government was and that they could not stop a rebellion of the people. Okay? Now, the summer of 1787 in Philadelphia is when the delegates from 12 of the 13 states chose to meet and discussed how to revise the articles, how to fix them. Okay, so 55 people attended from 12 different states, and they agreed to have no notes, although that didn't quite hold true because some people did keep notes, and they were going to keep it close to the public. Why? Because they wanted to make sure that there were no outside influences. They wanted people to speak their mind freely without any fear of their opinions getting out. And they didn't want the public to know what Plan B was when they finally presented the Constitution to the people. Because what they were essentially doing here was overthrowing the government. The Articles were going to be thrown out, and the Constitution was going to start anew. Now, as you remember from the weaknesses of the Articles, you needed 13 states to revise them or make amendments, and only 12 showed up. There was no Rhode Island in attendance. Okay, they were a small state, fearing that they would be overwhelmed by the larger states, so they chose to stay home. So they couldn't revise the Articles even if they wanted to, so that's why they started on a new Constitution. All right, they meet in Philadelphia for the summer. They elect George Washington as their president of the convention. Ben Franklin is the oldest delegate there. James Madison's probably the most influential. Alexander Hamilton as well, some names you might have heard of before. All right, three big splits we're going to have, all right, are going to be between large and small states, not size-wise, but numerical-wise. Okay, Virginia being the largest and Delaware being the smallest, they're going to be disputing over how many votes each state gets in Congress. There was a slave and non-slave split, okay, whether or not slavery would be continued, whether or not slaves would count in the population, whether or not the slave trade would remain, and so on. And then the last split was those that wanted a strong central government, like Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, that wanted one government kind of controlling the states, and then some of your smaller Patrick Henrys who didn't show up, but other less notable people were for strong state governments. They wanted the states to control things because they were more connected to the people. So those are your big splits we have going in at the convention. Now here's your original states as we know, okay? All are in attendance except for Rhode Island, Virginia, most populated. New York only sends 3 people because they're kind of reluctant to join as well, not because they're a small state, but they're actually pretty wealthy, and they don't want to join into this government that could tax them and could weaken some of the political power that they have. Okay? And in size-wise, all right, you can kind of get an idea here. You have Delaware as the smallest. Okay, so they're going to want representation to be equal, so they're on the same footing as a Virginia here with over 15 times as many people. Okay, North Carolina, one of the more populated, they're going to be one of the last to sign the Constitution. Pennsylvania, sizable number. Okay, you see New York there at 340. All right, it's not a coincidence that the state that will resolve this dispute is Connecticut. You can probably see why. They're kind of in the middle. All right, they're not one of the big boys, not one of the small boys. They kind of sit right in between. All right, so at the convention, James Madison is going to make an initial proposal called the Virginia Plan. Okay, what he is proposing is a 2-house legislature. Okay, the legislature is who makes the laws. All right, under Congress, or under the Articles of Confederation, there was only a 1-house legislature. He was proposing a bicameral legislature, 2 houses with different responsibilities and different representations. Both of his would be based on population. Okay, the more states, larger states would have more people. Madison, being from Virginia, obviously would want it based on population because they had the most. Okay, he wanted 2 houses so they could keep each other in check. Okay, one of them would be elected by the people. All right, just like we elect our representatives today, and then this house would choose the upper house, or what's called the Senate. So that way these people would be removed from the people in the Senate and sort of be more free to voice their own opinion on their own. Now this was defeated because the small states feared it was too much power and too much strength to the central government. So the New Jersey plan comes along by a guy named William Patterson. William Patterson says, I want a unicameral legislature, one house. These would be good words for the word wall, but I'm not going to offer any extra credit. We'll see if anybody just is intrinsically motivated to put that up there. Okay? He wanted one house, and it would be equal based on one vote per state. Now, as you can imagine, this one was voted down because what were we here to do? Yes, revise the Articles of Confederation, and he's proposing to have the Articles of Confederation, again, one vote per state. And they shot that one down as well. So now we're back to square one. We have no plan in place. Okay? Up steps Roger Sherman from Connecticut and proposes something called the Great Compromise, or the Connecticut Compromise. All right? I'll write that in red and see if it shows up here. All right? The Connecticut Compromise is the same as the Great Compromise. It basically said that there would be the two-house legislature. We're going to stay with bicameral. Okay? The Senate would be equal in representation. There would be two per state, and then we would have a House of Representatives that was going to be chosen by the people, okay? And then this is going to be based on population. So Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania would have much more representatives under that. So you'd have two houses to keep each other in check, okay? But they would also have different modes of election, all right? The House would be chosen by the people. The Senate, with two per state, they would be chosen by the state legislature. So they would be more accountable to the states than they would be to the people, per se. All right? We're going to stop the video here, all right? With the Great Compromise, I'm going to pick up with 3/5 on the next video, so hold 1 second.